Today we have attorney Whitney. Go ahead, say it for me.
Antoniano.
Antoniano. There we go.
Yeah.
And you are a family law attorney in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
You are also licensed in New York, Maryland, and Texas.
Correct.
And you deal with high conflict stuff.
I do lots of high conflict stuff. Basically anything you can imagine I've seen in court. I actually got started doing high conflict cases because I was a teenager in a really nasty divorce, and I experienced it from that point of view. I think their divorce lasted over 4 years. It was wild. And so seeing it from that kind of lens, I think really helps me in how I help my clients because
So,
I've been on the other side of it. Mhm.
so did you not want to, had you thought about being an attorney before that?
Yeah,
Or,
I always knew I wanted to be an attorney. I'm assuming somebody told me when I was really little and arguing or something that I'd be good at being an attorney, and then it stuck along the way, and I always knew that's what I wanted to do.
yeah, I was told the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I like to argue, apparently.
Yeah, and I like to think I'm pretty good at it. And I mean, after being in a courtroom one time as a law student, I was like, I can't imagine practicing law any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you recently got married.
I did in January. I got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, my husband is not an attorney. He works in politics. Of course, we're in DC. But yeah, we're very excited. We're actually about to go on our honeymoon.
Oh, great. Where are you going?
Greece.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
very nice, right?
Yes. Much needed reprieve, huh?
Yes, I'm very excited. I keep shopping for it.
Be like, you spent how much money on the clothes for this trip?
Yeah, exactly. He hasn't gotten to that point yet, so here's hoping.
Yeah. So tell us one of the biggest mistakes that you see people make in family court.
I would say there's a whole onslaught of mistakes I could tell y'all, but I would say there's definitely ones that you can make actually in family court and then leading up to family court.
Okay.
One, leading up to family court, even if you don't even have a case open, the way you're conversating with your co-parent is so important, especially when it's in writing. Because anytime you say something to a co-parent, just imagine some old judge sitting on a bench reading it out loud for everyone to hear, because that's what ultimately will happen.
Right.
And that should always dictate the way you speak to your co-parent. Basically, just always imagine a third party's eyes on there. So no threats, even if you don't do the threat, the threatening language
Hmm.
can be twisted, turned whatever way in court. And so making sure your communication is very direct, to the point, and clear is going to be advantageous not only for court, but for your co-parenting relationship too.
Right.
And then in court, the biggest mistakes I see people do, and it's so common and so easy to fix, is people show up to court with evidence, but it's all on their phone. And they don't have actually something concrete to hand to the judge. The
Right.
legal system's really antiquated. It's back in the Stone Age. So everything is written in paper. And so if you have
Hmm.
text messages, print them out.
Right.
And, and that's going to help your case tremendously versus asking a judge to look at a phone. Because I know a lot of judges that won't even bother looking.
I know anytime I've had to go to family court, which thank goodness that's over. My son's finally 21, but they don't allow phones in the courtroom unless you're an attorney, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had everything on your phone and you get there and they're like, "Oh, your phone can't go in," you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, at the very least, they'll make you turn it off. But then you're in a position, you're like, Your Honor, I have this on my phone. And you would have to turn it on and see if the judge would even be willing to look at it. But regardless, it won't be able to be put onto the record because they have nothing they can keep from it and
Right.
actually get into the record. And the record is really going to help you later on if you lose in that case and you need another case, whatever it is.
Right. And you
Mm-hmm.
were talking about communication beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I remember anytime that I would respond to my son's father,
Mm-hmm.
I would respond in a court ready way.
Exactly. Yes. Would
Because
that look like?
yeah, because I didn't want it helps you take the emotion out of it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're accusing you of this and they're accusing you of that, and you're like, "Well, I've got to defend myself." Well, that's irrelevant, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
defend yourself till the cows come home, and it's not going to change that person's mind. And all it's going to do, if a judge looks at it, is just take their attention away from the problem and be like,
Mhm.
man, this girl is off the chain.
Yeah. I tell my clients as soon as you give in to those sort of like petty responses and stuff, you lose your power.
Yes.
Being a parent whose responses are always focused on the kids, disregarding any sort of defaming language, whatever it may be,
Yep.
and just focusing on the kids keeps you in that power when you go to court. Because otherwise, as soon as you say, well, this is what they've been saying, they'll just point at this and say, well, you said this. And
Right.
you'll be, that's in response, yada, yada, yada. But then the judge is going to hear he said, she said, and not care.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
because they
what
get
they
tired of
did
hearing that
doesn't matter.
crap.
Yeah, what they did doesn't matter anymore as soon as you respond in kind.
And
Yeah.
also, it takes away from the focus of what's best for the child. This is the parents
Mhm.
arguing. This isn't about the child.
Yeah, and the judge will pay much less attention to those messages. I mean, they'll read them, but they're going to basically see them kind of cross each other out, if you will.
Right.
And they're going to say, well, they're both acting like that. And so that's just the dynamic we're dealing with. But if one parent's doing it, that's the problem parent. And hopefully they will treat your case with a lot more regard because you're not engaging.
Right. I
Mhm.
know in the beginning, just to give you a little detail, I found
Yeah.
out I was pregnant after my son's father and I split up.
Oh.
So we've never been together. It's always been the court thing, from day
Mhm.
one. But I remember after David and I got married, if I would get an email from the ex, just seeing his name made me sick.
Yeah.
And same with his ex, when her name would pop up.
Mhm.
And so we would read the emails or the text, whatever, and we would spend so much time trying to figure out the proper response and to make sure we addressed everything they addressed. And we finally said, you know what? This is consuming us. So
Yeah.
unless it had something specifically to do with the children that was
Mhm.
factual, you know,
Yeah.
then we would address that. Otherwise, we would just say, got it. That's it.
Exactly. There's so much to be said about I I all day long look at people's text messages back and forth with their co-parent. And being able to just respond to the important stuff that matters is really hard because you want to defend yourself and you want to
Yeah.
get your 2 cents in there. But there's so much power in just responding to what matters and disregarding the rest. Because when you think about it, their claims, what they're talking about, doesn't matter. And what they think about you doesn't matter to you. Like
Mhm.
you're not with that person. There's a reason, right? And
Right.
so it doesn't matter. And so you don't need to respond because your husband or your partner or your friend all know the reality of it. And so why are you trying to prove it to somebody that's never going to believe it?
Right. I was watching 2020 or something. I love crime shows. And
Same.
and there's this lady on there and whoever was interviewing her said, "Well, you realize that people believe that you killed your husband." Her response was, "Okay." That was it.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. She didn't try
Yeah.
to defend herself, nothing. And I'm like, that is how co-parents need to respond to each other.
And you know that woman has heard that many times before to get to the place where she can just say, okay.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
she's at a place where she doesn't need to keep pretending to prove herself to people that don't want to be proved.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know one time I had to go to court with my son's dad. He
Hmm.
was wanting to keep my son Sunday night into Monday morning and take him to daycare because he didn't
Okay.
want to deal with me at drop off. I
Yeah.
mean, that's so hard to just drop my kid off.
Yeah.
And I remember my attorney said, you really need to consider just giving in to that because the judge that we're going in front of, he's known for the 3-5 split or whatever it was.
Hmm.
But I just didn't feel comfortable with it. And I've got my reasons. First of all, I didn't think he was responsible enough to make sure he had everything.
Hmm.
Secondly, it's well, then I've got to make sure I send the lunch stuff. Just it was too
Yeah.
much. And plus, I didn't think my son needed to be around him any more than he had to.
Hmm.
And so we went to court, and I remember my ex got up on the stand, and the judge asked him something, or the attorney asked him something, and he went, as soon as he did that, the
Hmm.
judge looked at him, and I saw the judge was like, he's a butthole. I mean, you could
Yeah.
just tell. It's like, give them the rope to hang themselves.
Yeah, that's what I tell clients all the time. Also, when we're going into court, I go, watch your face because the judge is listening to what the witness is saying, but they're watching you. And if you're
Hmm.
making all those reactions and like petty sort of responses, they're going to judge you. I
Or
mean,
rolling your eyes every time.
you're judging the credibility of everybody. And if you're having those reactions because you can't help yourself, the judge is going to consider that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, in regard to the dropping him off at school, right? I have a client who we recently had to enter a temporary agreement, and part of it was dad dropping the child off at school. And we were really concerned about like whether he'd be able to do it. The judge ordered it, and so we're trying it. The other day there was like a delay because of the weather. And so the schools opened late. He just came and dropped the child off with mom because he didn't know like what else to do. He was like, well, school's delayed, so you have to take him. And she's like, no, that means you take him later to school. What are you talking about?
Hmm.
So it's a really good example, maybe, of what you might have been concerned about.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
then to a judge, that looks like dad just couldn't handle it.
And
And
dad, not only that, dad can't manage the child without mom.
right,
And the whole point of a custody decision, custody order, is setting something up where both parents don't need to rely on one another when they have the children in their care.
right,
It's especially high conflict. The judges don't want the parties having to consistently rely on one another because that just opens up opportunity for conflict and issues to arise.
right. We
Yeah.
also had to go to court order counseling.
Yes.
So that was fun. And
Wait, counseling between the two of you, between the child, how'd it work?
the two of us, the
Oh,
parents.
okay.
Yeah.
Counseling for the parent. Interesting.
Yes. And
Okay.
so my attorney subpoenaed the counselor or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And the counselor basically got up there and said, well, she's here trying to make things better. He's only coming because you're making him.
Mm-hmm.
And the counselor said his hate for her outweighs the love for his child.
That's like the number one concern anyone in family court has of that
Yes.
situation. And I hate how often I see that. Probably
Yeah.
in a good third of my cases, it's very clear that's what's going on,
Yeah.
right? They have an obsession with hating the other parent.
Right. Now, I know it's easier for you to see it because you're dealing with these people. You're
Mm-hmm.
seeing everything. Well, a judge is only seeing a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you think the judges really see that? Because you've got this small amount of time, this small amount of evidence that you can, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
just go, Judge, he's a douche, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I can. I'll say it a little differently, but then you have to back it up with proof. So the only time a judge actually gets what you're saying is if you have stuff to show for it,
mhm,
whether it's text messages with threats or crazy things they're saying about the other parent, whether it's another third party witness that can testify to some of these things. Always those additional forms of evidence just pad your story and ultimately make it more believable than his or hers.
right,
And so that is so imperative in order to get a judge to really see what's happening is they want proof because you think of them all day long. They're hearing qualms between people's relationships, parenting, he said, she said consistently. And that's all they
mhm,
really ever deal with.
yeah,
So having something separate from he said or she said is so helpful to be able to give clarity to that judge. And
right,
so without that, it's going to be almost impossible for them to really see that that parent is hating the mom or dad more than they love the child.
right,
So that's the most important thing. I think also in those situations, if you can afford a lawyer, that's so imperative because having like a neutral party explain this to the court is so helpful because you're no matter how prepared, no matter how ready you are, it's going to be tainted by your feelings and all that. And that's going to come across. And having a lawyer who can advocate how you feel and all the things that are happening neutrally, not
mhm,
neutrally because they're in your favor, but in a way the judge listens to,
right.
is so helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, we know attorneys are expensive, and I mean, y'all work your butt off, right? Well, some of you do.
Yeah, I think hopefully most of us, but I definitely do. I
Yeah,
do.
but I know I had someone tell me, "Well, why don't you represent yourself?" Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, I was in and out of the court system 18 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that no matter how much I tried, I could
Mm-hmm.
not be non-emotional when it came to my son.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my baby,
I tell people, obviously, I just got married. We have no plans of divorce, but if I got divorced, I'd hire a divorce attorney
right?
myself, and I'm a divorce attorney. I do all the time have people coming to me who really just can't afford a lawyer, and I'll give them advice, consult with them on kind of guidance on how to represent themselves the best they can. But yeah,
Mhm.
I think if at all possible, it's always a good idea just to give yourself that peace of mind too.
Right. And everybody's thinking that Chat GPT or whatever the AI stuff is going to help them be an attorney. And it
No.
can help you, but it can hurt you.
It can
There,
help like clarify how you're feeling and like iron that out and get it written down maybe.
right.
But when it comes to legal pleading, stuff like that, there's already been multiple attorneys disbarred for using ChatGPT.
Really?
Yeah, like I'm not sure where the case was, but some attorney had ChatGPT write a motion for him and he didn't even review it. And ChatGPT just used fake cases. And as attorney, if he had reviewed it, he would have realized those are fake cases. But I'm assuming as a person that's not an attorney gets a motion filed, they're citing fake cases. You won't know the difference because you don't know how to look up the case or
Right.
anything like that. You file that. I mean, attorneys are getting disbarred for that. And so imagine how that looks on your credibility.
Wow.
It's like,
Yeah.
I think AI is great in certain realms. Like I'll use it to help me take notes during consults, stuff like that, like organize my thoughts.
Right.
When it comes to giving something to the court, I have, I'm not ready to do that. I don't think anyone is just because it's so, the court is really not having it.
Well, even just in general,
Mm-hmm.
some of my son asked it something one day, and what it responded was the complete opposite of what it should have responded. And we just laughed
Mm-hmm.
about it. And we're like, but people are relying on it so much that they're not saying, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, that doesn't make sense. They're not using their brain with it. They're trusting this AI.
I have people come to me all the time and they're like, I already wrote the motion. I just need you to file it. I'm never going to do that because one, I'm not going to file somebody else's thing. It has my name on it, my credibility, my license is on the table. But oftentimes it's just ChatGPT wrote something for them and they just want it to come for a lawyer. And I'm like, not having it. I'm sorry, but
Hmm.
I have to review it and change it accordingly because that's just too dangerous for myself and for my client. It's going to look terrible for them.
And a lot of times it takes you longer to review it and change it than just to draft it yourself.
100%. Yeah, that's definitely the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have so many clients come to me with ChatGPT, and there's a lot of ways where they'll bring me notes from ChatGPT after they've like given them all of their notes. Like they've been making notes in their phone about exchanges, stuff like that,
Hmm.
which is all my clients to do. Keep notes in your phone.
Document everything.
Everything. Yeah, if you don't have a co-parenting app, then keep a note in your phone with all these times, everything. I had a client once and it was genius, and I had never even thought of it. Every time she arrived at an exchange, she would text herself here. And it gave that date and time stamp to
Oh.
substantiate it. And she was doing it through like a co-parenting app. So it had her location attached too. It was just amazing to use in court. It was so helpful
Oh,
because
wow.
there was disputes as to when people were showing up, and so that
Hmm.
was just a really creative way to do it. But yeah, doing all that and putting, maybe if you gave ChatGPT all of your notes from like 100 days of whatever and ask them just to organize it for you, maybe. Other than that, you're better off just giving your lawyer all the notes and having them go over it.
Yeah, and you still better check it if you have AI do it.
Always, yeah, double, triple, quadruple for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I know with my son, there was an issue with the times thing, like you mentioned. And the place that we exchanged my son actually had a billboard with the time on it.
Oh,
Now, you got to
nice.
think this was a while back too, so
Yeah.
phones weren't as up
Yeah.
to date as they are now. But so I would take a picture of the thing and then I would take a picture 20 minutes later. And
Yeah.
here's my thing is I know I was so afraid that I was going to get in trouble.
Hmm.
Like if my ex didn't show up and it's been 20 minutes, when can I leave and not get in
Hmm.
trouble? I mean, there was a time that he didn't show up and I left. 4 hours later, he messages me, you better have him here in 15 minutes.
That's not a
Well,
situation where I think you would get in trouble.
huh?
I don't think that's a situation where you would get in
Well, I
trouble.
wouldn't either, but
Good.
fear drives us, right?
Hmm.
And so it's like, okay, let me stop what I'm doing and take him for his 2 hours that you're going to have him for now,
Yeah.
just so I don't get in trouble.
Hmm.
But what's the best way to not let fear drive us? Because we can't call Whitney all the time. Say, Whitney,
Yeah.
he just messaged me this, and plus we don't want to run up our attorney bill, right? So,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, because attorneys charge by every 6 minutes. So yeah, you definitely don't want to do that. I think in regards to like how long do you wait at an exchange before it's reasonable for you to leave? I think it's such a judgment call, and it depends on like let's say how long he's going to have the child for. If he's going to have the
mhm,
child just for a couple hours, like you said, and there's another exchange that same night or even in the morning, I think you would wait less time than you would if it was like for a week time
Right.
with them. I think also the reasonable amount of time to wait changes as much as it happens, right? Like you're waiting 30 minutes once, it's reasonable to wait. If you're waiting 30 minutes every single week, it's no longer as reasonable to wait that long.
Right.
And
And
one thing
you
I'll
would
say,
think it, I'm sorry, you
oh
would
no,
think
go
it would
ahead.
be as simple as, okay, they're driving 20 minutes. I call them, they don't answer. I
Mm-hmm.
send a text, they don't respond. Okay, I'm gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's more than fair. I think there's always like a little cushion you want to give it just so that you don't end up back in court, right? Because obviously exchange is not going through is a big reason you'll just go straight back into court. But also you're not on that parent's time and your life isn't just organized around whenever they're available to show
Hmm.
up on time or not. Um, I forgot what I
It's,
was going to say, but in regards to like the exchanges, stuff like that, I think let's say you leave after 20 minutes and you do end up back in court and he's saying, well, she didn't exchange with me this day. When you're on the stand and you say, well, I was there for 20 minutes, he didn't show, he wasn't answering my messages, so I assumed that he wasn't coming, and so I left. A
hmm.
judge hears that. I think that's reasonable, right? Like if you do that like every 2 minutes after the time for exchange and leave, maybe not as
Right.
reasonable.
Yeah.
But you can explain yourself in a lot of situations like that. Like people think, oh no, the exchange didn't go through. This is going to look so bad on me. I think about it, I'm like, okay, well, the exchange didn't go through, which isn't great for anyone, but
Right.
why? And it's if you're not the party that's super, super late and you're the party who's with the child, who wants to keep their child in a parking lot for an hour? Not
Right.
to mention a child sitting there waiting for their other parent to show up to have time with them. It impacts them negatively emotionally. Like
Yes.
there's no way around it. Thinking like, oh, my parent can't show up on time to see me. The kids are going to think that whether they're young, old, especially as they get older, and putting them in that situation where they just wait hours and hours for the parent to show up for them isn't good either.
Yeah.
It
Because I know
doesn't.
with my son, his first thing was, I hope my dad's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, oh, he must be busy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he went such and such, just trying to justify it. And I'm thinking to myself, you're 5.
I know the child trying to make excuses for their other parent is sad, right? To
Mhm.
think that that's where they go and they're trying to defend their other parent when it's, clear that they were in the wrong and they're the adult. It's their responsibility, not the child, to have anything to do with that, right? It's none of the
Right.
child's business, is what I tell my clients. If at
Yeah.
all possible, it's nothing to the children have no knowledge, no need to be a part of it. I do my very, very best to keep children from testifying. And if they do, it's through a guardian ad litem or best interest attorney or through like out off the record sort of situation. Because when I was a teenager, I testified in court and I remember it so vividly. And I'm 32 now, but I think about it, I'm like, this is not something that's just going to be a normal memory for them, right? It's going to weigh on them, even if it was the
Yeah.
easiest day in court possible.
Yeah. Because you had to speak ill towards one of your parents.
Or I was basically baited into doing it, right? And like trying to respond to an attorney who's baiting you as a teenager is like, huh?
Yeah.
Right?
Because you're not understanding what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not going to put me in this position, but that's the position you're in regardless. And you really have no control of over it as a kid.
And I know here, it's not as simple as letting the child talk to the judge.
Yes.
Everybody thinks it is. Even my son, right or wrong, from the time that he was able to understand a little bit, I
Mm-hmm.
told him that his life is dictated by a court order.
Mm-hmm.
The judge says you have to go,
Mm-hmm.
because he was questioning why he had to go. And I was like, because your dad needs to spend time with you. And well, I don't want to go. And so it's like, okay, look, here's the deal. You have to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember one time he's like, when can I talk to the judge? And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't think you can.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, we need to figure out how because he did not want to go. And
Mm-hmm.
that's normal for a lot of kids not to want to go,
Yeah.
even if there's no reason,
Mm-hmm.
and he did have some reasons, but they weren't enough of reasons to where I felt comfortable keeping him again without getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
know,
true. Yeah. In those situations, like I have clients, so many clients where that's the case. The kid doesn't want to go. And I tell them, I go, you do exactly like you just said. You motivate them to go. You remind them that it's good to spend time with that parent, all of these things to your very, very best ability. And as the child gets older, their feelings on the topic start to matter more. And so we're, or at least here in Maryland, DC, typically it's around age 14 that the court will start kind of considering the child's wishes on whether they want to go or not. Still, when they're 14, I do my very best to keep them out of court, whether it's that guardian ad litem or best interest attorney advocating for what they say, or you can file for an in-camera review, meaning the judge and the child speak together. But again, that's only in very, very few set situations because I think it is potentially so damaging.
Yeah,
But yeah,
because
it's so common for a kid to want that.
a child may not want to go to the other parents because they make them do chores. I mean, that could
Exactly.
be as simple as, it's not abuse. It's, well, they make me clean my room. I don't want to go.
Mhm.
Or they make me do this. But to the bio parent, like if my son was saying, I don't want to go, my dad's mean to me or whatever, then as a parent, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't send my child to somewhere
Mhm.
where somebody's mean to them.
Mhm.
So it's, you've got to kind of, I guess, step back a little bit and understand why the child's not wanting to go. Now, I
Mhm.
did have a counselor one time tell me about my son. She said, don't act like he's going to the circus because he's not. Because I
Okay.
would like be like, oh, you're going to have
Build up to it.
fun. You're going to,
Yeah.
y'all are going to probably go do this. She said, and when he gets there and he doesn't have fun, you're the liar. I'm like,
Um,
oh, never thought of that.
yeah, that's good advice. I mean, basically treating it as this is just business as usual. The
Yeah.
norm is to have time at both of these places. But that's when people don't realize that one of the reasons why child support is set up the way it is, like with using income as part of it,
Mhm.
not just the split in time, is because they want to be able to create as normal of a transition between both homes as possible. Like I always tell people, imagine that you're a billionaire and your ex is dirt poor, like
Mhm.
doesn't have TV, anything that the kid can use or enjoy while there. As a young child, it's just by nature, they'll probably start preferring to be at the more comfortable house.
Yeah.
And it can lead to that disparity where they don't want to spend time with the other parent, not for any cause of their own, just because it's not as comfortable as the other house. And that's a big reason why income is used in the factoring of child support so that they can hopefully create like a similar environment amongst the two houses. But
Yes.
people are very upset about the fact that income is used. And I get it to a point, right? But it's the system we have. So you have to make it work for you instead of try to work it.
Yeah. Well, and that could be a whole nother podcast about child
Yeah.
support, like how people go about trying to manipulate their finances and working under the table and all that stuff. Yeah.
Quitting their job, as soon as I see that, I immediately have their income imputed to their previous income. And then they're like, well, I don't have a job. I'm like, well, that's your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I know, since I do Nacho Kids, one of the
Yeah.
times that we went to court, is after I started doing Nacho Kids full time.
Hmm.
And so, of course, he pitched a fit. Now, first of all, he wanted child support recalculated, and I told him, I said, that's probably not a good idea
Hmm. Yeah.
because regardless of my situation, you're making a lot more money than you did back then. Well, of
Hmm.
course, he didn't listen to me. And so the attorney said, well, we're going to impute your income as what it used to be.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, it's nowhere near that, but that's fine. That's fine.
Hmm.
They say you can go get a job making this because that's what you made for 7 years or whatever, which makes sense, right?
Yeah,
And but he still had to pay more in child support.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, tried to tell you.
I'm telling you, whenever I have like modification of child support cases, maybe a third of the time it goes up when they were expecting it less, or it's the opposite of what people expected
Hmm.
because they don't remember that their income has changed and that everything probably has changed. And there's factors that will work against you and for you.
Hmm.
And a lot of the times it's just they see one person doing better and they get greedy or don't feel it's fair, but they're not looking inward at what their situation has changed or how it has.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to pay 6 grand to an attorney to pay $10 less a month on child support.
Right, exactly. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
No, I tell clients that come to me to do a child support case when that's the case. I'm like, you know how much money you're going to spend ending up to pay more money, right?
Right,
Like
right.
I have too many cases to be just taking on cases for the sake of making money. I can't have to be real with my clients because it's ultimately going to bite them in the butt if I don't tell
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Now, does DC take into account, so like I remarried, would it take my husband's income into account? I know some states do, some states don't.
Yeah. So I at least so Maryland and DC, Maryland just passed a new law where so answer your question first. If you aren't making any money, the court may be able to use your spouse's income as your own. Let's say you're
Right,
a homemaker, you're not making any money, and then they may impute their income as your own in order to calculate child support.
right.
It's not a guarantee and it's not a given, but they have the ability to do that.
Hmm.
Maryland also just passed a law where you get a credit if you have other children in the household that aren't like on a custody or child support order elsewhere. Like a couple of my clients have had another child since their separation with a new partner, and now you get credit for having a kid at home without a child support order, which is really helpful for a lot of people. So Maryland and DC both do that now. So you get basically more child support because or your income is lessened in the calculations because they're realizing that part of your income is going towards that other child that's not a part of any child support order.
Right. So say for instance, just to use easy numbers,
Yeah.
that um my son okay, use my husband
Mm-hmm.
and say his kids, say he was paying $500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had a kid of our own. Well, his child support could actually go down
Mm-hmm.
because we had a kid of our own.
Yeah. And the way it would change is the number they use for his income in calculating child support would be a little bit less. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
so instead of $60,000 a year, it's 58 or
Yeah,
something like that.
something
Yeah.
like that. Exactly. And that's how it affects the child support. And so let's say your partner has had 3 kids or your ex has had 3 kids since your separation, their income is going to be calculated with a lower number than what it actually is because of those 3 additional children.
Okay.
And this only works for biological children or adopted children. Like I have a lot of clients who have a girlfriend living with them who has kids, stuff like that. It doesn't work like that. Only your biological or adopted children that like are your financial obligation.
Yeah, not stepkids.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
speaking about stepkids, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you've dealt with a lot of step parents, and we're going to go ahead and say stepmoms.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as Nacho Kids goes, it's they're not yours biologically,
Mm-hmm.
legally, or through osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
We see so many step parents that say, no, if we split up, I'm going to still get to see this kid and I'm going to get, time. And I'm thinking, okay, that's great. So the kid goes to one bio parent one week, one bio parent the next week, and then you're wanting them to go to you
Yeah.
every third weekend. Well, then you meet somebody else and they're wondering why you're going to see your ex to get their kid. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing to these kids?
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
I see it all the time where a step parent or even like a new girlfriend, something like that, steps in and all of a sudden they are acting primary parent, whether it's because the actual biological parent is basically just letting them take control and decide all these things because it's easier for them,
Hmm.
or they're really just going out of their way to act as a parent, like a biological parent to the child.
Hmm.
And I have to remind people it's not as if that child's parent died. That child's parent is very much alive. They have that parental influence. And so you adding it in is not only confusing, it negates the authority of their other parents. And you're just going to have an innate less amount of trust and like belief in from the child in you, right?
Right,
Because you're not their parent. Like
right.
I can tell you how many cases where we have to specify in an order that there can't be any corporal punishment from a step parent or a family member. Um, if parents do that, it has to be a parent because
Right.
imagine your girlfriend stepping in and then spanking your child. I'm assuming whoever the ex-wife or ex-girlfriend is probably going to have an issue with that. I would have an issue with that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it's I think it's really the duty of the biological parents to keep that person in line because they're the one bringing that parent or that step parent around the child, right?
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of times they don't see an issue with it and they'll just let it happen because, yeah.
Well, like you said, it's easier. I mean,
Hmm.
I would have loved if David would have taken over communications with my ex.
Hmm.
That would have been great. It would
Yeah.
have been like the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. But
Hmm.
that's not his responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah. And being
And
able to like manage those responsibilities actually on your own. A lot of parents, like when you're together, maybe there was a primary parent who did the bulk of like the things for the kids, right? Setting them up with extracurriculars, whatever it looks like. And so when you split, that parent doesn't have it in their second nature to be doing those things because they're just not used to it. And so those parents typically find a new partner pretty quickly. And that person jumps into that role. And
yep.
that's a huge issue for people. But it really up to that parent to realize that, or a judge will put them in their place and make all those requirements in an order where it has to be a parent to do the exchanges or yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many times have you seen where a step parent is pushing their partner to get more time with the kid?
Oh,
And the partner doesn't really want more time with the kid, but the step parent's pushing it. Like you said, a new woman comes in the picture, and all of a sudden, every other weekend's not good enough. They want 50-50, or they
mm-hmm.
want full time.
I have so many step parents that contact me for a consultation, and I don't even find out that they're not the biological parent till the consult. And as soon as I find that out, I go, well, where is the biological parent? They need to be in on this. And if there's an attorney-client privilege, it has to be with that parent, right? Because you're not the client, you're not the parent. And I learn about like 30 minutes in, like how their ex, like they say they want this, but they haven't really done anything about it. I go, if they haven't done anything about it, it's on them. And if they're not going
Right.
to do anything about it, then the court for sure isn't going to do anything about it because that parent has to be the one leading the charge.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say probably 10% of the people that contact me for inquiries are step parents.
And that's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
That is so
Right?
funny. You just need to refer them to Nacho Kids. Just say,
Yeah.
look, here, go to nachokids.com. It'll tell you everything you need because they are not your kids, lady.
Yeah, and especially like these step parents, it's very clear to me that their disdain for the other bio parent is even higher than their partners. Like the
Yeah.
ex work well better together than the step parent and the new one. And so a lot of
Hmm.
the issues are coming from the step parent.
Yes.
Yeah. It's hard
Yeah.
to weed that out, especially for a court, because, well, they typically do pretty well when it's like a girlfriend or boyfriend that's stepping over the line, right?
Hmm.
They're good at limiting it by making sure it's actual the parents that do certain things for the kids, yada, yada, yada. But as soon as you remarry the courts, you have to be very clear about what you're asking for from the court, making sure it's not a step parent doing certain things,
Hmm.
for them to give you the kind of order that's going to be good, where it keeps that step parent in line.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this, just kind of out of curiosity, because I've had someone ask me this question. Say that I nacho my stepkids
Mm-hmm.
and my husband and his ex go to court.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, well, she doesn't do anything for those kids. Would a judge look at that as a bad thing?
I don't think so at all. I don't think the judge is going to hear that and be like, red flag. Like in family court, when there's certain things you'll say that a judge, their ears perk up, right? That doesn't seem to be an issue, I don't think, because your obvious response is, well, it's because I do, because I'm their parent. And the judge,
Right.
yes, I agree. The only thing I think they would be concerned really about is when a step parent's overstepping, like we were just talking about, or if there's like abuse or
Yeah.
worries about the fitness of that other parent. Um, like I have a case where my client's ex is with a new partner, and that partner has lost custody of all of her other children. And so it's an underlying concern about
Right.
involvement and stuff. And so in that regard, we did just brought up in court that issue and its relation and basically dad's judgment, making sure to limit her involvement because of the concern that she's lost custody of all of her
Mhm.
other kids. And there was multiples. But
But
unless
not saying she can't be around the kid.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
But that dad has to be the one primary parenting them, like he should be, regardless.
Right.
But making sure that the order had those extra provisions, making those requirements really clear just to protect the kids in case he didn't realize what his responsibilities were or he fell short on them in whatever regard.
Yeah. I know we see a lot of, we deal mostly with stepmoms, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
um, we'll see a lot where they're like, yeah, bio mom hooked up with this guy that's a registered sex offender, and they're all upset about it. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
wanting, the kid to not go there. And my first question is, well, what does your partner think? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're the parent. If they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a problem with it, then it's out of your control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
This isn't your hill to die on. This isn't your battle to fight.
exactly. Yeah, like if your partner had an issue with it and wanted to go to court and make sure there's all these conditions where the children can't be alone with that parent, that's more than
Hmm.
reasonable. But it's up to them. You can't be the one making all the calls for kids that aren't yours.
Right.
And I wonder how terrible those moms that are put themselves, their stepmoms that put themselves in that situation. I can only imagine what their own custody cases are like, right? It's like, oh
Exactly.
wow, because that's their actual children.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, it's completely different when it's their kid.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and
Yeah.
if somebody else stepped in line with their child, I know for a fact they would have an issue with it, right? But
Hmm.
it doesn't apply to them when they do it.
All right. Let me ask you this:
Mm-hmm.
enforcing a court order. So I know with my ex, for example, there was a case, I mean, a clause that there were to be no paramours spending the night.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only way you could prove that that happened was to get a private eye, take
Mm-hmm.
pictures, because you don't want to take your kid in there and have
Exactly.
them, say, well, yeah, Susie spent the night last night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the other part of that is the next judge for the next case, of course, my ex is like, I want that out. Of course he did.
Mm-hmm.
And that judge is like, well, y'all were never married. I don't see why it should have been in there in the first place. So he just kicked it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what drives me crazy about the family court system. And it's not because that was removed or even put in there in the first place, because I didn't ask for it to be put in there. But it's the fact that it can change so much from one judge to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's black or white.
Nothing. I would say maybe child support, but still then there's gray areas. But judges, the biggest thing in family court, which is why there's a lot of people that don't like family court that have issues with it. A lot of people love it all around this realm of how people feel about it. But it's all because judges have so much discretion in family court.
Hmm.
It's a big reason why, at least in like Maryland and DC, we try our best. Like if that judge is still sitting, you get that same judge when you go back for modification, which is
Right.
helpful. But otherwise, there is really, because the only way to appeal a family law case, you have to appeal the abuse of discretion. And so a judge abusing their discretion is a very high standard to prove in an appellate court. And if you can't prove it, then the judge was able to use their discretion and decide accordingly. And any other sort of revisory power, like a motion to maybe like contest to something that the judge ordered, you go before
Mhm.
that judge to make a ruling on their own ruling, which
Right.
is innately unlikely to happen because most people are confident about the things they do.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's really such a, I guess, gambling really with what
It
judge.
is.
And that's a big reason why a lot of family cases settle. And I think a lot of my cases, I tell people, I go, we could get a judge and you can get a slam dunk, or you can get a judge and get nothing. And that's why a lot of cases it is better for them to settle, because just as much as like a judge would make a change that you weren't expecting from the get, right? Like
Hmm.
that, taking out a clause, you can get a judge that really is not very detailed. It's never practiced family law, doesn't really care to make his orders very detailed or personal to the actual family. And you can just get some like boilerplate order where the other parent has reasonable time. And like, what does that look like? I
Yes.
don't know. And there's no way to enforce that, because if you say it's not reasonable, I can guarantee the other party's going to say it's reasonable.
Right.
And how do you argue against that? Because everyone's point of view and definition of reasonable is different, because it's an opinion. What is
Right.
reasonable?
Yeah.
And so the likelihood of getting a judge, I know certain judges that are so great, and they'll put in so many really detailed provisions and parts of an order that are so helpful to parents, right? And then I also know judges that don't do that.
Hmm.
And ultimately, you can't control what judge you get. It
Yep.
really depends on judge by judge. And then also, I think court by court. Certain jurisdictions are known for having more like detailed, because they're smaller courts where there's less busy, more time to put into each case.
Right.
Some courts are super busy and you never know. You could just get like a custody order in a drive-through.
Right. Right.
Yeah, quite
And
literally.
yeah, I know the first order we had, I thought it was fine and it covered everything. But then you realize it doesn't cover 50% of everything. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, there were those vague areas.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a co-parent that you can't co-parent with,
Mm-hmm.
and y'all weren't together for a reason, you couldn't get along, then they're going to see it one way, you're going to see it another. Plain and
Mm-hmm.
simple. You're going to have these issues. And then it's okay, do I get an attorney again to go back and try to have this clarified? Um, and a lot of times I've seen where people go back and they try to get things clarified and it costs them a fortune and it's
Mm-hmm.
still not clarified.
Yeah. I have a lot of cases that obviously do high conflict cases for the most part. And so that happens all the time. I tell people, like, once you've been in court several times for a custody order, things like that, it's also helpful to ask for like certain provisions where, let's say there is a disagreement, you're required to attend mediation for however many sessions before you're able to file with the court. Or if you have a parent who's like abusing the court's power to get at you by filing nonsense things, making a requirement where if they file a nonsense claim that ultimately gets denied, they pay for both parties' lawyer. Something
Right,
like that as a guarantee to basically give parents a reason to not just use the court as their personal like vendetta, and
right,
hopefully make it all actually about like reasonable possible and changes that they want to make that are best for the kids.
right. I know
Yeah.
I think in South Carolina, I may be misquoting, but think now you have to go through mediation before you can go to court.
Mm-hmm.
So the last time we went to mediation, it's still like gambling
Mm-hmm.
because the mediator's like, well, a judge could look at it this way, or a judge could look at it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know.
Yeah. I'll say one thing. In Maryland, for the most part, rather than you may go to mediation as well, but they'll for sure send you to what's called a settlement conference. And
Mhm.
most of the time in Maryland, that's done by either a retired judge or a sitting judge.
Okay.
Having their say on it gives us a little bit of like a window into what the court might rule. Of course, you can get
Mhm.
a different judge. You will get a different judge, and they could disagree. But having the opinion come from somebody who's actually makes those decisions is helpful. But yeah, I mean, I get why they send everyone to mediation and or settlement conference, because they just have too many cases, and in most cases settle anyways. But ultimately, like, I've gone to mediation and afterwards spoken to my client. I was like, here's the deal. I disagree with that mediator, but that's an opinion. They agree with the other side. That's fair. But I don't think that's what the court will do, but it's up to you. And I've had situations where I say that we go to court and the court completely agrees with us. The mediator was completely wrong.
Hmm.
The judge did not see eye to eye with that mediator at all.
Right.
And so it is definitely just something to take in consideration when you're thinking about a mediator's opinion, because they are, for the most part, just family law attorneys like myself.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say that they have there's not like a benefit to them for settling cases, but they are in the business of hopefully getting cases settled. And so their interest is getting it all resolved. When,
Well,
as a parent,
a good mediator would have
yeah,
good mediation skills, right?
yeah. But as a parent, your interests are your children's, right? And
Hmm.
so resolving it and then not accounting for certain interests of your kids isn't what you want. And so ultimately, it doesn't make sense to mediate or to agree to anything in a lot of cases. There's a lot of cases I have that judges need to make the decision regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times you hear the horror stories of guardian ad litems. I had a
Yeah.
friend that his ex accused him of inappropriately touching their daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She had her go to all these therapy, and I mean, I'm talking 5 years later and hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was
Mm-hmm.
unfounded.
Mm-hmm.
The ex, what she gained was him not getting the kid for 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't have to fork out as much money as he did.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I feel like when that happens, it's like there needs to be some repercussions for when you're making these false allegations against your ex. But at the same time, how do you prove they're false?
Yeah. And how do you prove that they weren't actually like believed that they were right? You know,
Right,
how do you show that they were doing this knowing it was wrong? It's
right.
so hard. It's almost impossible, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's with like those best interest attorneys, things like that in those situations. When I first got started practicing, I had a lucky like streak where I had some great best interest attorneys, and then I met a few that weren't great, and I realized a lot of what people were saying about the not great ones.
Mm-hmm.
But just as a, I guess, helpful note for people that do have a not so great guardian ad litem, in those cases, I either try to find a way to change that guardian ad litem's opinion to agree with me in whatever way, like offer certain things so that they'll come to agree and see my way. Not
Right,
like offering anything like that, but like saying, well, what if the parent does this or that? Would that help calm your nerves about this? Things
right.
like that. Or I've gone to court and basically pointed out, like, well, the guardian ad litem is saying this. I disagree entirely, Your Honor. I know you would probably disagree with this. And I've had a judge say, well, I disagree with the guardian ad litem.
Mm-hmm.
Just rare, yes, but it's not impossible, right? Because ultimately, they're just another family law attorney with an opinion.
Right,
And a judge all the time does not agree with a family law attorney's opinion. So they're not
right.
scared to do so.
And they're people again.
Exactly.
Yeah, a female guardian ad litem is more than likely going to click with the female, parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, unless there's major things that they see or whatever. There was one time that we had a guardian ad litem assigned, and there was something off with this guy, and I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't figure it out. But then I found out that he was going through a divorce with his ex or with his wife at the time.
That's
It's
already
like
like
he
dead.
was not, he should have not have been doing guardian ad litem stuff at
Yeah.
that time because he was fighting with his ex. So of course he had a bitter taste in his mouth for women. But
Yeah.
again, it wasn't the focus of the kid. And that's what's so frustrating is even with the guardian ad litems, it's, oh, well, I like mom, I don't like dad. But who's best for the kid?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big red flag when it comes to guardian ad litems is how much time they actually spend with the child. If they spend more time with the parents than they do the child, I think that's a big red flag
Yeah,
because obviously they need to speak with both of them. Their job is to have like a full survey of everything in the kid's life, but ultimately they are the child's attorney. That's what a guardian ad litem is. It's
right.
for the child. And they say what the child wishes and whether they find that reasonable or not.
Hmm.
And if they're getting the bulk of their story and their reasons from one parent, that's a big red flag with the guardian ad litem. 100%.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And now I know again every state's different, but if say I was assigned a guardian ad litem like this dude that yeah. Um we're just not gonna go into detail about
Yeah.
that.
Him.
Yeah, him. Can you request another guardian ad litem?
You can. You would have to file a motion of the sort, or I'm speaking in Maryland and DC at least. You can, but it's very unlikely, right? You would have to give a real reason for their bias, be able to prove it, things like that. And just with the understanding that whatever you're filing, asking that guardian ad litem to be replaced, that guardian ad litem is going to defend themselves. So you have to have like clear evidence of a reason or something they've done that was improper or something like that.
Hmm.
I find like so a lot of times a guardian ad litem will be appointed by the court pays for it, things like that. I've had situations where there's been an issue with a court appointed guardian ad litem, and so to get that guardian ad litem to step down or replaced, my client offered that he would pay for the guardian ad litem, and they would the parties would jointly pick one, something
Okay.
like that. So giving another alternative is really helpful, and it usually you have to make it reasonable to the court. If it's going to be an extra cost to the court, that's going to be a harder scenario. So if you're able to swing to afford to pay the guardian ad litem as well, that'll absolutely be helpful in making that case for a new one.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so one last question so we can
Yeah.
wrap up. I know you got to go defend everybody. Well, I've
Yeah.
got two questions. First of all, do you advertise yourself as I'm a high conflict I mean, a high conflict family court attorney.
No, I don't necessarily advertise myself as that. Like I have a lot of non-conflicted cases, like uncontested cases. So I take on every kind of case. I definitely say that I have a good amount of high conflict cases. And of course, those take a lot more time, last longer. And so right now, probably 80% of my cases are high conflict.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So the question is, have you ever went into court and you were confident?
Hmm.
We're not going to say that you would win, but that things would be seen the way that you see them by the
Hmm.
judge.
Yes.
And you walk out of that courtroom and you're like, what in the crap just happened? Because the judge just did a complete 180.
There's a bad day, something like that. Yes,
Yeah.
that happens. Um, I'd say it has happened like a handful of times that I can recall. And they're definitely, those are just more reason why I talk about the disparity between each judge, right? You can never for sure guarantee what a judge is going to do. And I can
No.
think in my head, though, this is a slam dunk, and then I don't get it. I'm like, wow, okay. But you just have to prepare for all those possibilities. That's one of the really risky things about going to trial is that you can be so sure of yourself, and ultimately you can get a judge on a day where he doesn't want to have to deal with that, and so he doesn't, and just
Right.
or something like that. Yeah.
My husband and I have talked about how we think that the family court system should have three judges.
Oh, like an appeals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or a jury of your peers, right?
I think there's divorce. I think I want to say Georgia has jury trial divorces. I'm
I
not
think
certain.
Texas
Maybe
might too.
Texas too. I don't know. That would be fun though. I got started as a public defender. And so I love a jury trial. It's very fun. It's definitely a little bit different, but I can't imagine doing a family law case in front of a jury, but that sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, but I mean, think about it.
It's a
I
completely
think
different
you,
audience.
right. And I think that it would be more fair than a judge that he's
Mhm.
mad at his wife that morning because she did something, or he went through a high conflict divorce and this woman comes up and she looks like his ex and he's got PTSD. And I mean, just
Mhm.
all this stuff. They're not robots, they're
Yeah.
humans.
I can see the benefits and potentially, obviously, the drawbacks would be just the fact that it would take you so much longer to actually get to court to trial because
Yep.
jury trials take forever to actually get to trial, and you would make family court process last a lot longer. But I see totally having the benefit of multiple opinions when making a decision for family court, right? Not just
Hmm.
one lateral one, because it really limits the amount of discretion, like changes amongst every judge.
Right. Yep.
Mhm.
All right, Whitney, where can our listeners find you?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok. My handle is WLA Family Law. That's the name of my law firm. I'm under attorney Whitney on TikTok. But yeah, you can find me WLA Family Law. Also, my website's WLA Family Law. Those are my initials, so it'll be easy to remember. But yeah, I give advice or education, not advice, educational content with family court every day. So if you're looking for some help, you can definitely find it there.
Great. Well, we appreciate you taking the time and being a guest on our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back sometime.
I would be happy to anytime.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.